All right, y'all. We are back in the building and we have got to discuss the latest episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville. All right. So the episode is called Town Hall Downfall. And I think, a lot of the focus today is going to be on Marsau. So I got to ask y'all, what type of man do you think Marceau is? Do you think that Marceau is, in fact, relatively harmless? Okay. And is just kind of a bit of an a hole? Do you think that he really has issues with women's? Let us know in the comment section down below. I mean, because on this past episode, things did get a bit saucy with him, with Stormy, with him, with Melody, with him, with Courtney, with him, with Martell. I mean, it was given saucy, sassy, and a little bit nasty. Okay. Um, or do you think that he just makes good reality TV? Let us know in the chatterization down below. But first up, y'all, we are lucky enough to have a sponsor for today's video. Let's go ahead and get all the way into that, and then we're going to rate this episode.
Today's video is sponsored by Scentbird. Two things about me. I like to smell good and I like my fragrance to match my many moods. So if you're anything like me, this is the perfect solution for you. Scentbird is a fragrance subscription that lets you choose a different designer fragrance each month. And for just $17, you get to pick from over 600 perfumes, colognes, and unisex options. So now I get to try some of my favorite designer brands and I get a full 30-day supply of each fragrance. This month, I got Heretic Parfums Floorgasm, which combines notes of bergamot and ylang ylang, which make for a nice daytime scent. I wanted to step outside of the box a little, so I got Sanctuary's Cross River Gorilla with its notes of green apple and smoked leather. But my favorite out of the three is the Bottega Pour Homme. For this, it's the perfect night out for fall. It's got a strong, rich combination of bergamot mixed with masculinity of leather. That's perfect for a date night or a night on the town. I love that the containers are small enough to pack for your travel luggage or a day bag, or slip it into your pocket in case you need a refresh during a long day. I've also got to mention that you get to pick your own fragrances each month. You can skip a month or cancel at any time. Let's be for real. The only thing that comes close to looking good is smelling good, and your scent can leave a lasting impression, which makes Scentbird a perfect component for your fragrance collection. Use my code DJRichie for 55% off your first month. This is available in the US and Canada.
All right, so now that we smelling good and looking good, we can get into this good old episode, okay? On the scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna give this episode like, dang, I don't want to make see for me, like I think I've been giving straight tens this season because every episode to me has been entertaining. You know what I'm saying? Like I have sat down to watch it, and even though sometimes I'll be feeling like, oh, okay, you know what, I got to work, got to do some work right now because I told you I'd be taking these notes like a secretary, but they're making it difficult because when I'm watching the episodes, I'm like thoroughly amused. I'm so into it. And I'm making so many notes because what I've come to realize about this show is every conversation means something. Like there are really no fluff scenes in the show. Like every scene is a conversation that actually propels the story forward, whether it's personal story or whether it is simply the group story or group dynamics. I feel like everything means something. So as I'm writing down my notes, even if it's only 4 to 5 major scenes, it's still giving me a lot of nuance to discuss. So as I'm about to give, I feel like I can't give it a 10 because I don't want to seem like I'm just over the top in love with the show, but I'm over the top in love with the show. They given me everything that I need and that I feel like I haven't been getting on some other shows. So for that, I'm gonna give it a 9.9. I mean, I just got to give it a 9.9. I felt like it was a good episode. Every last scene meant something, okay? And we moved the needle with regards to where relationships are going, friendships are going, whether it's resolved. We had some breaking of the fourth wall. So let's go ahead and dive into it, okay? I have given you, if you have not seen the episode, I've given you my rating. So now you know. So if you want to stop the video here and go back and watch, or if you want to just go ahead and tap in to the conversation, to the Ponderosa, because you didn't see the episode, or maybe you did, let's get into some things, baby. All right. So first thing we got to talk about is Melody and Marsau. Mel, they're still having this conversation. I got some feedback in the last video because people were like, well, I don't know if it was a situation where people felt a certain type of way, like I was, why were you supportive of this conversation being had with Marsau and Melody, but it wasn't okay for them to have a conversation with Tiffany last season? And y'all have to forgive me, my allergies are bothering me a little bit, but to me, this was different. I felt like the week before, I felt like Melody let Letitia know she had an issue with something that Marsau said. I felt like Letitia saying, handle your issue with Marsau because he can speak for himself. I felt like that was the green light for the two of them to have a conversation by themselves, right? The man and the woman having, I mean, it's an agreed upon thing. The wife is okay with it. You know what I'm saying? I felt like everybody knew what they was going into the conversation to talk about. I felt like the difference with the Tiffany situation was that she was blindsided because she thought she was having a conversation with Martell, and she ended up being tag team and quite insulted when she was not aware that this was going to be happening. That's where I feel like there was a difference. Not to mention, I felt like Marsau added fuel to that fire and made the situation 10 times worse when I felt like Martell had every right to ask her, hey, this conversation bothered me that you had with my lady friend, or whatever you want to call her. Even if we don't believe any iota of that relationship to be real, I feel like he still had a right to say what he needed to say. I do feel like men and women can have conversation upon certain agreed upon standards and conditions, um, especially when there's no threat to be felt, right? I don't necessarily feel like Tiffany felt like she was in danger per se, but it was also just kind of degrading how Marsau was coming at her. Marsau more than Martell, who actually had the issue. So as Melody and Marsau are sitting down to have this issue, we also get flashbacks of their previous run-ins with each other. Really, not really. I don't want to even say run-ins because I felt like those were set conversations that they were supposed to have. There is precedence for Mel and Marsau to go at it with each other because they are really like two of the shade titans of this show. I mean, say what you want. I mean, there is some dynamic, okay, between Marsau and Melody that is entertaining to watch. I'm not saying it's anything more or anything less. I'm saying that the two of them going at each other makes for great television. It is what it is. I mean, and that's just on period. That ain't got nothing to do with any like levels of attraction or nothing like that. I ain't saying that. They just make good opposing forces. Period. So as I'm watching this conversation go down, I'm like literally feeling like I'm watching a tennis match between two of the titans of the show, right? So Mel tells him that he's afraid of Letitia and her being get in a good space so that she doesn't perhaps get the strength to leave his manipulative line behind allegedly. Okay. Let me put up the alleged badge because I don't want nobody saying that yeah. You know how the people is these days, right? So Marceau disagrees. The t-shirt business is just not for him. Okay. Um, he says it's a small business that ain't really doing anything. Okay. Um, we can debate about that. I mean, I know that you guys have seen plenty of people online make quite a hefty income from e-commerce and merch sales. I mean, when you think about all the money I'm sure Beyonce made from that merchandise when we didn't even know what we was buying. I mean, I just feel like, the support black colleges, the God is dope brands. These are all great, t-shirt brands and apparel brands that are really out there killing it. So I don't really feel like it's the small business that, he feels like it may have been in the past. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you're trying to do it. So she wants him to admit that he's throwing jabs her way. And she's like, so I was good enough to speak, but not good enough to get paid, even though I started a business that made $1 million in a year. And then he's like, yeah, that business went bankrupt. I was like, I mean, and he literally sipped his tea at that moment. He literally sipped his tea. I said, that Marcel, he be knowing what he doing, okay? So she clarifies that yes, okay, um, there was a bankruptcy, but it was as a result of the divorce. She says you filed bankruptcy because your finances wasn't right. Okay. Now I felt like she could have sipped some tea after that. All right. So like I said, they're going back and forth. They bouncing the ball, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. All right. So she says that she could have said she doesn't want to do an expo with people who got a $5 million fraud lawsuit. He says, well, I respect your opinion, but it is necessary. Is it necessary for them to agree on this, on their opinions? And that's a good point. That's really a good point. She just wants him to acknowledge that she's been in business for over 10 years. And Marcel's like, well, I don't know what you do. When I tell you saucy and sassy, like, and I don't listen, I don't mean it in no type of ways. It just is what it is. It's a fact. The man was sauced. He was saucy. Okay. Not saucy Santana, but he was saucy sassy. Okay. It was funny to me. The both of them going at it with each other. Um, she corrects him that she's been in business since 2014 and he wouldn't have tried to go in business with the Holts if he did not know what they did. And I'm like, I mean, I feel like that's a fact. Why would you want to go into business with somebody that you don't know what they do? Okay. Um, he says, well, what are you doing now? Okay. He pulled a Nene. Let's talk about what's in the garage now. So she tells him she does property preservation, the same thing that she put him in. Bloop. Baby, when I tell again, it was the shade off of it all. So apparently, he's also made comments on her social media about her class, where she teaches the people how. I actually thought about taking that class, to be honest with you, but I was like, you know what? I'm involved in enough. Let me let me just slow it down, okay? Because one of the things I have learned is if you don't master a few things first, you will be spread apart so thin that you will not be able to be what they call it. You could do a lot of things, but master of none. Like I don't want to be that person no more. Anyway, um, he says it looks like you're just jumping from business to business to see what sticks. And this is where he breaks the fourth wall. He says for him, it's about the fact that she's on a number one rated reality show, and the people that they are talking to in the audience don't have the platform that she does as a result of being on this show to be able to sell the way that she sells. Now, he says that he values who she is and that maybe the Fletchers embellished a bit. I don't really think the Fletchers really embellished. I think Nell went back and said what was said. He did not say her name, but at the end of the day, we know exactly who he was talking about with the t-shirt business. I mean, it's plain as day, especially because she was wearing a t-shirt right there in the scene. Which, listen, if I once I finally do some merch, and I'm gonna tell y'all the reason I haven't done merch yet. For me, when I think about merch, I really want it to be something that I know that you all want to buy. Okay. I know that it is something that is going to be that is going to go further than what it is that I do on this channel, right? I want it to be something that lasts for a long time. So if I invest my and it's not and granted, I could slap something on some shirts and call it a day. But for me, I just want to make sure that, if I'm doing it, that I feel like I want to rock the shirts outside of me just being right here, because I don't want it to just be like a money grab or nothing like that. Not to say anything about anybody else, because that's not I'm sure for Melody, she has developed things that she says on the shirts that makes sense to go along with the brand. So I think it makes more sense there. For me, I just haven't discovered what I really want that to be yet. And when I go in with it, I want to go all in and really believe in what it is that I'm doing and I'm putting out. So it's just a little bit different. And that's the reason why I haven't done it yet. Right. Um, but I see nothing wrong with it. I respect the business enterprise, especially a lot more so than Marsau. And I know that it is very lucrative, and I know that it can be very meaningful for the people who are purchasing and supporting, right? So I don't want to downplay that at all. Um, I do. It was interesting that he broke the fourth wall. But I think that that was really the only way that he could really make his point stick, was by saying, listen, you got the platform of this show as the reason why you are able to sell out the way that you do, right? Um, and whether that's true or not, I feel like Melody is one of those types of people who use the platform to her benefit. And we talk about reality TV all the time, and I'm like, you have got to use reality TV because reality TV is using you, right? So you're supposed to get up here and take opportunities, make opportunities, and make the most of each of these things and make the most of your moments. Because if you don't, then you foolish. And we have seen many people squander their opportunities, but not also we have to realize that not everybody has to go that route. It ain't for everybody. Everything ain't for everybody. So what Mel is able to do is definitely for her, right? But it's is he correct? Technically, yes. She has the platform of being on this show. So it does allow her to become a household name and to develop a brand that people feel like they can trust. I mean, but those can all be, but she can also have her own great business acumen as well. So I feel like both things can be true. It can be. Um, for her, she tells it to him plain. Stop coming for her and her business acumen. And he actually agrees that he won't do it again. He claims that, he didn't know she was still doing property preservation, and that's a business that he does value. They agree that because they have opinions doesn't mean that they're taking jabs, which is nice. And then he invites her to the town hall that Kimmy and Maurice are hosting for them. And he says he does value her feedback. But she feels like it's a little bit ironic. Okay. But at least I feel like we got some resolve with the two of them sitting down, at least for now. Okay. And so I did find that for me, this added to my pleasure for the episode, because we were able to resolve something with two people just sitting down face to face, which is really what we want on these shows, right? We want to see conflict, but we want to see resolve, because it just feels like the tension has been released. It's a thing. It is what it is for reality TV. You know what I'm saying? Um, I wrote in my notes, oh, Lewis is still on this show. Because I mean, he barely be there. And Tiffany is feeling the effects of it. I think that I can sum this scene up with a couple of things. I mean, they go to have a picnic or whatever. And Lewis has been coaching for the Alabama A&M University's I guess baseball team or whatnot. And so he is traveling. He's on the go, he's assistant coach or something like that. So he's on the go constantly. Man, these coaching jobs, I mean, they just seem like a lot of travel, a lot of work or whatever. And she's home with the postpartum, and she's bitten off more than she can chew, I think, because it was she that wanted the baby. okay, to begin with, and now it is she who is complaining that he is not there. When last year it was he who was complaining that she was not there. So it is very ironic that they are in this situation right now. And basically, what it boils down is she wants to spend more time with he, and so he is like, is it just that you want to spend more time? Or is it that I'm not giving you time at all? Okay, because girl, I'm trying to do what I can. Okay, that's what it was. That's what it was given, and it was given for her. You need to do more, and it was given for him. Okay, okay, that's how I felt. Did y'all feel like that? That's how I felt like that conversation went. Meanwhile, it's the day of the town hall. Martell arrives looking like Uncle. So I was having a conversation about this, and why I feel like he be looking like Uncle when nobody else comes in looking like Uncle. Even Chris Fletcher, who I feel like might be older, don't be looking like Uncle. But Martell, for me, this is a personal opinion, okay? Which, as Mel and Marsau agreed, does not always equal a jab. So this is not me taking a jab. This is me conveying to you why I feel like he comes in the scene looking like Unc. Okay. Now, to me, Uncle is the style choice for Unc is the loafers, the drivers with the shorts. Okay. Now I can't help it. For me, when I feel in my spirit, okay. As Nene said, if she don't want a dildo, she don't have to have a dildo. I feel like when you put together the loafers and the drivers with the shorts, it give you uncle look. I feel like loafers drivers need to go with pants, and that's just how I feel about it. So I don't understand. To me, maybe it's a down south situation. Because last week I just watched last week's episode again, and what's the child name? Kiki husband had on the Unk outfit too. He had on the shorts with the loafers and the drivers, whatever you want to call them. I always just feel like it give you an uncle vibe. I can't explain it. Now I know I'm probably gonna offend somebody with that statement, but it is what it is. If Nene don't want a dildo, she don't have to have dildo. If I don't like the loafers with the shorts, I don't like the loafers with the shorts. Okay, that's what it is. Period. So anyway, now that I'm done with that, Stormy comes in and she don't even want to speak to Marsau. Stormy, if she don't want to speak to you, she is not going to speak to you. Okay. Which I gotta respect that because some people will just try to be fake just to get along, which I don't see nothing wrong with either. But I also feel like I respect the person that come in and just be like, I ain't talking to you, but I'm here, shouting. Shorty swing my way. Sure looking good to me. All right. So Marceau reveals that he met with Mel and he wanted the businesses, that were relevant to their audience to be the people that were represented on stage, right? So he wanted any business that might be relevant to the audience at large. And that does not include a t-shirt business that you basically started as a result of your time on the show, I guess is what he was saying. And the reasons he talks about, the reasons why she's able to sell products is because of the platform. And again, they end up doing this thing. I meant to send, oh my God, I meant to post this because I feel like this was so relevant to the episode as well. As he's speaking about the platform of Love and Marriage Huntsville, and he's breaking the fourth wall again. I felt like the producers simply said, okay, if he is going to continue to break this fourth wall, we are going to have to show up and we're going to have to join in. Because then you get the theme music for the show, and then you get the logo for Love and Marriage Huntsville that pops up on the screen right after he says the word platform. And I just have to say, the editors, bravo for just being in on the gag of it all. I loved it. It was a little small thing, but if you picked up on it, it was like y'all tried it, but I liked it. Okay. The editing I find for this show is never over the top. The editing is not what makes the episode. The editing, if they use it creatively, is usually meant to enhance something in the episode. So that was a moment for me that I truly appreciated. Okay. I actually had to rewind it because I was like, no, they didn't. Did they? Oh, okay. Okay. I see y'all. I see y'all. That was cute. That was cute. Um, then he goes into talking about Stormi. He's like, well, whereas Stormi, who was selling her products before the platform, and Martell is like, no, hold on, wait a minute. So if you wasn't doing something before the platform, it's not relevant. And Marsau is like, kind of. Martell is like, well, in that case, a lot of what you do now would be irrelevant. Now, I might have, as I stated, I felt like Martell was dressed like Unc earlier, but Uncle was making some sense today. Okay, he really was. In this moment, I felt him on that one, and I do like the fact that he still, in some way, shape, or form, wanted to have Mel's back because it is true. It is not just a business that, sure, Stormi's business is ultra relevant. Okay. I think Stormi's business is also what made her interesting enough for this show. But I mean, that and her personality. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I'm just saying it legitimizes the fact that she's a force to be reckoned with. And here's why, because that business is successful. But I also think that Martell is correct that just because you had a successful business before doesn't mean that the business that you have now that's thriving is any less relevant. Okay. Because if the money is cashing in the checks, if they make it in your size because you got the coin, then yes, to me, my bank account is more relevant than what your opinion of my business is, to be honest with you. Okay. Um, so Marceau is like, he said that in the meeting too. So, why bring it up? Okay. So Kimmy walks in on this tension and Marceau is re-explaining his position. Martell basically cuts him off and says, I agree. And well, no, I agree with what Martell was saying. He says it, and he takes it back to him cutting grass and how he started with 1 yard and worked his way up. And that being the stories that some people need to hear, maybe it's motivation of how you start your business. So at that point, Mel walks in and Kimmy has to tell, Marceau that saying anybody's business is irrelevant is offensive. And then Marceau reiterates that Mel said it was offensive and he apologized. Okay. They want to know if he did apologize, and she confirms that they did have a conversation and they did finally, it took them a while to get around to it, but they got there. She feels like she's already congratulated them and she's told them that there were some opportunities for, like, she would like for some smaller group sessions at the expo, like, for different types of creatives as well, to learn more about their audience. And Letitia was like, well, they decided to do away with the breakout sessions based on the level of participation. I'm assuming maybe from the group, but I don't know. For Stormi, she wanted more motivational discussion at the panels. Her and Marceau have a moment of tension because he seems to disagree, and she is clearly still annoyed with him. And at this point, Mel thinks that, yeah, she would have liked to have had the breakout sessions, and then at the end, a closing type of motivational type of moment for the group. And Stormi is like, um there's another moment between Stormi and Marceau, um, because I guess maybe Mel said something that was similar to what Stormi said, and Marceau seemed receptive of it. So Stormi's like, "Well, Courtney, you want me to tell you what my statement was?" And Marceau says, "I'd really like to know what Courtney's wife had to say about motivation." So Mel is cracking up in the corner. Okay, I mean, like, she is like literally cracking up, and now we've transferred this moment of cattiness from Marceau and Melody to Marceau and now Stormi, and they are really in it. Okay. Stormi in her confessional says Marsau's level of sassiness is beyond her. Courtney thinks Marsau needs to let Letitia take over because he's all over the place and she's more organized. So the tension is thick. And Marsau jokes about their business not having any gender roles. So Kimmy tries to intervene. Now, Kimmy will later tell Nell that this business meeting, this town hall, was her meeting. But I feel like if it was Kimmy's meeting, Kimmy needed to take the reins a bit more because the meeting was off the rails. Okay. Marsau claims that he is writing it all down because Kimmy told him he had a lot of negative things to say, and basically that Marsau is catty and rubbing off on Stormi and Courtney and making them cattier. Okay. Marsau says he's writing it down and he's going to make it better so that he doesn't really care what they say. But now he's offending Kimmy. Tiffany wants to know if he's taking notes because they are taking the lead and they're going to do another Black Business Expo. And he says, yes, they are going to do another Expo. Stormi's like, I thought that we were doing the Expo. But since y'all want to do it yourselves, y'all can have that, okay? So Mel is hopeful that there can be more organized and streamlined in the next Expo. And Letitia's like, you didn't think it was organized? Mel says, no. People that had to pay, some people had to pay, others didn't pay. We talked about it at Tiffany's event. Tisha was like, so the event wasn't organized? Mel feels like there were aspects that weren't. Letitia says, well, we're only here to discuss what happened during the Expo, not before the Expo. And Mel is like, no, ma'am, because what happened before the Expo was the reason for the things that happened during the Expo, and now we are having a ponderosa about them after the Expo. So don't try to downplay what I was saying. But anyway, y'all, I got to go. I got a flight to catch. Let me get my stuff. Throw this plate away. I've done my thing here. God said go. Bye. And she get to going. God said go on, girl. God said got a flight to catch. God said flight's not feelings. God said go. Okay. Anyway, it felt like they all kind of knew she had to leave anyway, so it didn't really feel like she was just trying to run to escape the scene or nothing like that. I felt like she really did have a flight to catch, but she was like, "I'm gonna make the scene. I'm gonna make the scene. I'm gonna make the scene. Y'all make the scene." So anyway, Marsau basically it says he's taking everything in. He's gonna allow this to make them better. And Tiffany's like, even the women at the table, you're gonna take their advice. And Marsau's like, I know you're not used to being valued at home, but you're valued here. Saucy, okay. And even Letitia looks at him like he's crazy at that moment. And Tiffany has to reiterate, no, you're devaluing what women think. Okay. Marsau says, well, I'm glad you're willing to get to know who I am. And Stormi's like, dang, mister, let me get the last word, just like a little BI. So Marsau is like, I am a BI, by the way. I'm a bad BI. Now what? Okay. Oh God. I mean, Marsau is basically like, he was saucy, okay, on this day. And by saucy, I just mean he was just definitely, he was on his best a-hole game that day. All right. He was not letting anybody up. He was not letting he was not letting his boot off of nobody's neck that day. All right. And at the end of the day, he was like, well, we know who not to invite next time. And Courtney says, well, they're not coming. Maurice is like, why? And Marsau says they're not needed. Stormi's like, that's not what you told Mel. Bloop. Oh God, oh God, oh God. The $100 is brought up again. Stormi and Courtney after a while, they leave. They look like this is it. Kimmy's like, Marsau, you just ruined another meeting. Meanwhile, we find out that Kimmy had initially invited, it sounds to me, now I don't know if I got this wrong. Kimmy had initially invited Nell to this town hall, then thought better on it and said, no, after the witnessing Nell and Tisha go at it, no, I'm just going to invite the people that was actually there. What I will say is, if Kimmy, if you had that thought in mind, you probably should have let her know. You probably should have called her and said, listen, I know that I invited you, but now I got to de-invite you, okay? Because it don't make no sense to have y'all there. Y'all didn't participate in the first one, so getting any feedback is really not going to do anything but make the people involved feel like, a bit more defensive than they already are. So I'm gonna take you off the invite list, okay? For the event. And because Nell is basically like, well, girl, why would you even invite me to begin with if you was just gonna de-invite me or whatever? Um, they kind of go around the mulberry bush, because Nell feels like they should be there. They have been in business for 30 years in the North Huntsville side of town or whatever, where the event was. And I feel like this again, Nell. I feel like, girl, if you was at these meetings, you knowing what I know, you probably would not have wanted to be there. You might want to be in the 2.0 version that's going to be bigger and better. Okay. So let it go and let's move on. All right. That's how I feel. But they do end the meeting in a good place. All right. Martell, this was interesting to me. Martell meets with Fred, his business partner, and he's a developer and a home builder. And they at a house that they doing some construction on. I told y'all it is like Legoland in Huntsville. Every scene, somebody's in a new building, a new office, a new event. I mean, it's just so much popping down there. I need to go. I'm gonna make my way down to Huntsville for myself and see it for myself. Okay, I'm gonna go down there like a private eye and see what's really going on. Okay, not to really report back on whose business is doing what. I just really want to see like what this environment is like. I mean, it's so much that seems to be popping down in the Huntsville. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, um you know they Martell might rent this place out because Chris stops by and is like, well, when am I gonna sell this house? And Martell is like, well, I might just keep it. And Fred says, well, it is a renter's market. Aha, which leads me to my next point. Chris is like, when you moving out, sir? Because the people need to sell this house. Martell is like, well, hopefully a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And Chris is like, nah, player. We just talked about this 2 weeks ago. And the owner is like, you got to be gone before the first. And if you're trying to be gone in 2 weeks, that's beyond the first. Okay. Fred seems shocked, and Chris explains that he has a fiduciary duty to his client, even though Martell is his friend. Martell claims that he's got something in the works, and Chris is like, "You don't think you'll get in there this weekend? You think you're gonna get out this weekend?" Martell is like, "No." Chris is like, in his confessional, he's like, Martell needs to man up and do the right thing and get out of this house so we can get this house sold, because they are months into this thing. And Martell is like, well, if you get the trucks over there, I can move. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I mean, at the end of the day, I do feel like you are holding this man hostage. Like you are using your friendship, okay, and you are taking things too far. Understand adult obligations, because anybody else would have had your butt on the streets. Okay. But the fact of the matter is, this man is your friend and you're using that to your advantage. Get on up out the house, friend. Get on up at the house, Unc. I mean, at this point in time, have a moving party, a packing party, and get on up out of there. Anyway, um, they bring up Chris talking to Marsau. Apparently, Marsau didn't know that Chris had a daycare, which we talked about before. And apparently, they ended up getting some sponsorships for the event. And Tish didn't want to mention how much they got from the sponsors. Now, we could debate about that. I mean, does she have to tell that amount? Not really, not specifically. However, if this is a nonprofit sort of situation, then I do believe with nonprofits, there does have to be some level of transparency, but I don't know who that is owed to. Okay, is that just owed to the government, or is that owed to the board members, or is that owed to petite people who are participating in the events? Okay, because I would think that they are not necessarily have they don't I don't think they have to actually mention that to the people that participate in the event, unless the people in the event are on the board, or unless they are doing the planning together. Okay, which it doesn't sound like was the case, but I don't really know, because everybody's confused about this, and Nell and Chris want to be a part of it, and I don't know why. So anyway, um Martell mentions that Mel brought up the sponsorships initially, and they didn't want to do it until she said something. So Chris mentions them not wanting to pay speakers unless they were professional. And Fred mentions that he was at the VVC, which I don't know what it is. If y'all know, let me know in the comment section down below. Mel spoke very well. And I believe, because Mel does have a gift, I think, for engaging with the public. She just has a knack for it. I think she has a gift for it. It's her thing. And so Martell confirms that she is a great speaker. And I do like the fact that despite all this stuff that's going on with this alleged revenge porn and stuff like that, I feel like it is still nice to see that when it counts, he is still trying to support her. Again, I can't really go to speak on that because I do know that they filmed their reunion this past week, but I do wonder if that came up at all because I feel like it was such a huge thing. It was a thing on Atlanta. I feel like they mentioned it there. How could you not go into this at the reunion? So I am going to be very interested to see how that plays out. Because I feel like we can't tap dance and Punani pop around that one. We're gonna have to talk about that. And Chris also lets him know that Marsau was like, well, guess who owns Scope now? Now, Martell mentioned something about how Scope was formed and how it was supposed to be a buyout, I'm assuming. That I need to figure out what he meant. But anyway, Martell says that everything that the Scotts got now, they wouldn't have if it wasn't for the Holtz bringing them in. And I'm assuming this is still talking about the show and breaking the fourth wall. And it was interesting to see Martell get so fired up because he's like, if I had known what was being said, then I would have confronted him about it at the town hall. Martell then says that all the stuff that the Scotts have could be taken away, and he and Marsau knows that. Okay. And in my mind, I wrote down, I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, could y'all be like, oh, we don't want y'all on the show no more, and then everything go away? To me, I'm gonna tell you the truth. It would be a difficult thing to have Love and Marriage Huntsville without the Scotts. And I know some of y'all do not care for them. I'm not necessarily sure why. Listen, because when I talk about these shows, I'm talking about them and I'm criticizing them from a observer's perspective, meaning I'm a fan of the show. I'm watching the show. I'm talking about what they do, but I'm not really invested in like I want them all to do well. Let me state that. Um, but so I don't have like a personal stake in, hating anybody. Because I love everybody and I want them all to succeed. Just as an observer's perspective, Marsau and Letitia bring a lot of energy to the show. Now, whether you like that energy or not, they to me are critical to the success of the show. And to be honest with you, if there was anybody who was less critical to the success of the show in its current iteration, it would actually be Martell. However, I respect the fact that he will most likely always be on the show because it was he and Melody who came to the table with the show. Okay. So I respect it, but I'm just talking to you from an observer's perspective about who actually has more of a stake in the success of the show at this point in time. And I would definitely say that contribution wise, it would definitely be Letitia and Marsau over Martell. Now, that does not also include Melody because I think that Melody is at a different level and has definitely used the platform to elevate to almost she literally is pretty much the face of the show. Whether you like her or not. All right. And those to me are just the facts. It is what it is. But to be honest with you, the core group of the show work better. I mean, this show is better because of all of them working in tandem together. Okay. That's just how I feel. That's my honest opinion. Let me know what your thoughts are in the chatterization down below, of course. As always, I want to hear your thoughts, your feedback, your opinion. And with that being said, of course, I will catch you all in the next video.
Thanks for watching today's video. Remember, you already look good, so you might as well smell good. Use my code DJRichie at scentbird.com for 55% off your first month.